So, with all the stuff that's been going on in the world, COVID, social unrest, police brutality, I decided to make a statement with my work. I originally thought about going out and protesting with the rest of everybody else, but I was worried about the risk that posed myself and my girlfriend. To make it a long story short, my girlfriend works at a nursing home and cares for 40 plus elderly residents 4 days out of the week. If I were to go out, I would be putting myself and, more importantly, her at risk. I'm also applying to medical school, so I'm worried about anything that were to ultimately happen that may affect my goal of being a black physician and combat health disparities we see in the nation. If I were to get arrested or hit with tear gas, that would ultimately affect my aspirations of being a doctor. And I really didn't want to risk that. Like many black people seeing this crazy world, I think to myself what I could do to support the cause of Black Lives Matter without putting my health and well-being at risk. Mind you, this is not because I'm thinking about myself, but because the impact that I have right now is promoting diversity in art, tech, and the field of medicine. And also, working to help black creators create an XR. There isn't many of us in particular industries. We have to make decisions on that when we put ourselves at risk. Especially now because it takes even more time to get into these positions. Part of the reason is because you have to go against the grain of what is expected of you, and you have to navigate different areas without any guidance until you have a level of confidence, skills, and insights for people to finally take you seriously. And we're often worried that if we don't make it through, there probably won't be any one of us coming through down the pipeline anytime soon. So I thought about what my biggest strength is. It hasn't really been going out and doing things. The coronavirus has been very real and I can't really afford to get sick. So I've been doing a lot of YouTubing and podcasting, so I decided to let my creativity just really drive my activism at this point. If I can put the pen to the paper, I can make stuff that garners a community and pushes the conversation forward. And that's really the ultimate goal. It's not necessarily about me, but the ideas that I'm promoting and how to share those ideas and build community around them. I really thought hard about this because when we interact and engage with these ideas, they're not in person. Most of them are just through a screen. Literally, all our understanding of the coronavirus and social issues is filtered through a screen, from the transmitter to our senses. I think this is such a profound realization because there are so many filters that the information has to pass through before it comes to us. And with that, I can use the filtering of a screen to promote causes that I feel strongly about. I can Photoshop something and dig into a lot of creative efforts, but that would in many ways be antithetical to the whole point of this whole thing. The goal is to exist in spaces that are otherwise unwanted of you. This is a concept that black people are very well aware of. Whether we belong in places or not, if we do, we worry whether existing in those spaces will cause uproar from the majority. This is not without actual references I can find in my lifetime. It wasn't until 2002 when racist language in Oregon's Constitution, referring to black people as free Negroes and mulattoes, 30% of the population was opposed to changing that. Literally 1 in 3 Oregonians supported referring to black people in policies as free Negroes. Is it really hard to believe that 30% has gone down given the climate we're living in right now? So I came up with this idea of using augmented reality for activism. To me, it is the marrying of art and technology to express myself. A picture is worth 1,000 words, and technology can place a picture into a real-world setting to contextualize that statement. I thought the concept would be great to explore because I could build an installation on the computer, go to a location, install the artwork, and share it with the world. More importantly, I didn't have to worry about physical limitations that come with traditional installations. If I were to make a 30-foot installation, I would have to worry about location, time, resources to pull it off. Then I would have to take a picture to memorialize the moment and post it onto the internet for the world to see. Then you would have to deal with the consequences of that action: vandalism, trespassing, etc. In reality, most people will only know about this from the picture and videos anyway. Those are all things that get shared and things that people reference as receipts for its existence. All of this for a picture. So how about we reduce the risk by focusing on the picture and the video rather than the physical installation itself, replacing the analog with the digital to make an event more powerful statement. I could create Augmented Reality App to make a 30-foot monument that I can place anywhere in the world. I travel to and install them freely. I can then take the installation and share it with the world like other installations. I can repeat this multiple times with many other installations and reduce the amount of time it would take for me to create them because it's completely digital. Then I could share the app with others to participate in a movement that is of the times and on par with the way we intersect with the world during COVID. To be honest, the journey was really simple. It first started when I stumbled upon a 3D model of George Floyd. The creator posted it and I thought about how cool it would be to make an AR app with it. Adding some simple user controls and ground plane tracking can go a long way. So first, I set up Unity. I downloaded Unity, I opened it up, switched the build settings to Android because it's just much easier to build an Android app than an iOS app. I went on to go to Vuforia and download the package for the AR engine to work. This is always pretty simple to do. Just download, install, add a license key. Afterwards, I made a scene, added the AR camera, changed the ratio of the game view to 1920 by 1080, and changed it to landscape right. Added a plane finder and ground plane stage to track the ground. Deleted the main camera, turned off the duplicate stage to make sure we don't add multiple models to our AR scene, and I set the ground plane anchor. For adding the model, I downloaded the model from Sketchfab and added it to the AR scene as an OBJ. I added some lights to make the model more visible and resized it so it wasn't too big for the stage. I tested it out with the PDF emulator that came with the Vuforia SDK so I can use it with my webcam instead of having to build it out to a device all the time. With the model done, I added a UI to the app to control the model. I went with simple scale and rotation features. I added the canvas to the app, a panel to hold the assets, and 2 sliders. One slider was for the scale, another one was for the rotation. I then anchored them to the bottom of the screen and labeled them with some text. In order for the features to work, I needed some code. It was one of a few lines of code, so it wasn't too bad. I opened Visual Studio, added a script for the scale, added a slider reference, and had the value of the slider reference scale the X, Y, and Z areas of the model. I did the same thing with the rotation, except for I only referenced the Y axis for the rotation value. The X and the Z axis were 0. I wanted it to only rotate around a vertical pole only. After coding, I added the scripts to the sliders respectively. I first made an empty game object to place the model in the container. This is the container that I will use to actually rotate and scale the model. I dragged the scripts to the container, then added the sliders to the reference area of the scripts. I then modified the values of the sliders. Rotation would go from 0 to 360 degrees, and the scale would go from 0.05 to 4. I tested it out and I was pretty pleased. Then I added the toggle for the UI elements. I figured it would be nice to toggle the UI on and off with a subtle button so that it would never cover half the screen when you're trying to take pictures and videos. I added the toggle to the game object, removed the text, and changed the toggle indicator to a green circle icon. I anchored the toggle to the bottom of the screen and created another panel to separate the toggle from the other UI layers. The last thing I want to do is actually hide the toggle button when I hide everything else. The next thing I did was add a function to the toggle button by clicking the plus sign in the on value change section and added the UI panel to it. I clicked the play button to make sure that it worked, and it did. After the app was done, I put my designer hat on and decided to make a branded icon that spoke to the app. Default Unity apps just had the Unity icon on them. I didn't feel like that was fitting for the experience that I was trying to create, so I decided to make a custom one. I took a screenshot of the 3D model on Sketchfab, opened up Photoshop, started building out the icon. I made the icon a 1080 by 1080 square with some rounded corners. I superimposed the image over the square and added it as a clipping mask. I added some flashy icon style effects to get the final icon look and exported it to Unity as a PNG with transparency to maintain that rounded look. I then added it to the default icon list. Lastly, after I finished the icon, I wrapped up the app experience with some splash screens. I decided to add some intro screens into the app that gave some information about the app. I added some memorial text and a message to support the cause. Then I added some credits and references. I exported those from Photoshop and added them to the splash screen section. After organizing the slides and giving them the right timing, I exported the app out and went out into the world to test the app in the real world. So, I live in Portland, Oregon, and it is kind of crazy that Portland is one of the epicenters for all this social unrest. Given that black people only make 5.8% of the population in Portland and 3% of the population in Oregon, it's just really interesting that they've been protesting for pretty much 100 days straight. The feds have been out here snatching people up, white supremacists have been infiltrating police, and even the mayor got tear gassed. It's just pretty wild here. Funny thing is that all of this has been happening around a few blocks in downtown. Portland blocks are pretty small, so I would really say that it's only about 3/4 of a New York block that got all this national attention. If you walk around Portland when the sun is out, it's pretty typical, It's a typical lily white day with people jogging, cars passing, dogs barking. When the sun goes down though, that's when it really goes down. Definitely decided to go out during the day though. With my mask on, I went out to the world in Portland and started putting the concept to practice. I traveled to the waterfront where most of the people go walk around and run, the many parking lots that have idle cars, and all the murals that have been sprouting up as things began to shut down. My girlfriend and I went on a journey to catch Pokemon and sightsee. To be honest, it felt really good. It was a really good experience to walk around Portland and see all the pro-black icons and murals all over the boarded buildings. It is one of the very few times that I actually felt accepted in Portland. Understanding the history of Oregon and their exclusionary laws that hindered black people from moving in and owning stuff, what we saw in the city was the antithesis of that history. We're really curious where they will put all this magnificent artwork. Unlike my project where I can put in my pocket when I'm done, this has a physical element that takes up space. There were just so many areas to place the model. I varied the size of it, I did creative shots, I did gimmicky shots, I did full 360 shots. I just had fun, to be honest with you. I really tried to see how far I could push the project. For the most part, people thought I was just really into my phone, and I was. But it was because I was admiring something that was very personal to me. One could argue that the whole point of monuments and murals is to exist in the public. But that was not the goal for me. As a black man in Portland, walking around a very white city, I wanted to feel comfortable. I didn't want to try to admire something in a public forum, looking over my shoulder, worried about someone saying some racist stuff in response. It is exhausting, and sometimes I just don't want to deal with it. To be able to experience something that is grand and fantastical, but also discreet and personal, is a major strength of immersive technology and augmented reality. I felt fortunate to be able to create such an intimate experience that I would be able to share with others. So after the journey, I posted the pictures on Twitter, and boy, was it a statement. Of course, there were some positive responses. Before I knew, the post was shared across the XR industry by hundreds of people. It was great because people I followed on Twitter were interacting with it and receiving it pretty well. This made me feel pretty good because I was getting responses that I wanted from this. Unfortunately, when you put yourself out there, you have to deal with the risk and consequences of it. For me, I know that saying Black Lives Matter on a public forum comes with some inherent risk. That risk often aligns with white supremacy and anti-blackness. For the most part, I knew what types of responses from certain types of people I was inviting with my post. Interestingly enough, they were so similar in nature and from pretty much all versions of white people. In a sense, I feel like my goal was accomplished because I was able to create an installation in Portland that was shared all over the world in support of Black Lives Matter. And I didn't have to put my health at risk or my safety at risk in the process. Plus, I triggered a bunch of racists, and they couldn't do anything about it but comment on Twitter about how much they don't like it. Very rarely can a black person make a statement and have an experience that has such a minimal risk and maximal reach. The only thing I really have to deal with is really just a bunch of racist comments. It was really fun to see how I was able to add stuff to the world without any consequence. I wasn't worried about how white people felt as I put a 30-foot mural of a black man in the center of the city. I could be unapologetically black without fear of white supremacy rearing its ugly head. If only I could feel like this in any other areas of my life. Despite people's opinions of the installation on Twitter, there is a freedom and liberty of doing work that makes a statement and not have to worry about the repercussions of it. If they don't like it, oh well. They can't do anything about it. So if you want to learn how to make AR apps, I made a course about it. You can learn by taking the course I made based on the project on Skillshare. You will learn the basics of augmented reality, how to use AR in activism, how to use art in activism, how to build an augmented reality experience in Unity without code, how to enhance the experience of thought-provoking art with the user interface and user controls. The app will place a 3D model into an augmented reality and control the 3D model on screen with buttons and sliders. And you can check the course out at the Skillshare link in the description. If you like this, feel free to subscribe on Patreon. And if you do so, you could get the promo code to the course that I made on Skillshare, and also the project files for the whole project. More importantly, if you want to follow my work, subscribe to all my podcasts. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You could like all the social media stuff. Check out my other, projects and stuff like that. And more importantly, go buy my books. Go buy the stickers. Go buy all the stuff at illtopia.com. And so, without further ado, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And this is Steven Christian with Stuck on an Island and Illtopia Studios. And I will catch you all later.